Yeah, hi there, Junaid. This is Michael again from the 7-Step System to Pass the TOEFL IBT. Wow, you got a lot of good questions. And I appreciate, you're taking a lot of time to think through how you do things. And it's this kind of thinking that's going to put your TOEFL score straight to the moon, I'm telling you. So let's look at your question. You say, this time I'm reading a lot from www.scientificamerican.com. and also practicing test CDs of Longman and Kaplan. Excellent. The Longman book is a little bit easier, I think, than the actual TOEFL IBT, but the Kaplan book, it does include exactly, I think, the difficulty level of the actual TOEFL, so you are getting, looks like, some good reading practice. And then you say, I have observed that if I immediately go in answering questions about a word in a specific line or about a paragraph or even about a line, I can better understand and answer the question immediately, instead of reading the whole text at first. But when I read the whole text, which I normally do in 6 to 8 minutes, I become a bit slow to respond, thinking about the text more than thinking about the words. So please tell me, am I doing right in making this strategy? For example, if I start my test and get the question of underlining words in specific line or reference words, should I answer them first, and later when I get to the question related to all the text, should I then be reading the text? So please tell me how to start the reading section, how to divide my reading time. I do not have any trouble in pronunciation, reading, and understanding. Should I be taking notes? But taking notes confuses me a lot while answering, which I'm avoiding while I prepare for the TOEFL IBT now. Sorry to be taking a lot of your time. You're not taking a lot of my time. You're asking good questions, and a lot of people, I think, would also be interested in knowing the answers to your questions, so I'm going to answer them right now. I agree with you in the sense that normally it's not a good idea to read the whole passage first before answering the questions. I would not do that. I mean, you're telling me it's taking you 6 to 8 minutes to do that. So to me, it's wasting your time. And for the first few questions, main ideas, detail questions, pronoun reference questions, rhetorical questions, and these kinds of questions, you don't need to read the whole passage anyway. So many students, they spend too much time reading and not enough time answering the question. So yes, I agree with what you're saying here. The main thing is to look at the question and figure out what kind of question it is and where in the reading passage can you find that information, right? That's kind of what you're doing. Now, what I recommend is when you're reading the passage, typically read the first and the last line of each passage, of each paragraph, and skim the rest. If you want to look through the reading passage before answering the questions, that's what you do. But do not read everything word for word. Again, let me repeat what I just said. Read the first and last line of each paragraph and then skim the remaining parts of those paragraphs without reading everything. Immediately go to question 1. Look at the question. What kind of question is it? You know, because it's question number 1, the answer will most likely be found in the first part of the first paragraph, right? So you go to that part of the paragraph, you read that. Now, one thing I don't recommend is, you probably already know this, is don't read the answers. I think it's important to look at the question. Go into the reading passage and find where it discusses that information. Once you've read that, then go to the answers A, B, C, and D, and then choose which answer you think is a restatement of what you have read. So I think that would be true there. So how do you divide your reading time? I would probably recommend that you're spending approximately between 1 minute and 90 seconds answering each question. And then when you get to the end, typically at the end of each reading passage, you'll have what's called charts or completing tables type questions. And you have identified that correctly in the sense that typically you do need to read most of the passage at this point to answer those last 2 questions. Remember that these last 2 questions, they could be 3-point questions, 2 or 3-point questions. So you definitely want to make sure that you answer as many of those questions correctly as possible. So in terms of those last questions, you have to understand the organization of the reading passage. Typically the reading passage, it might be categorizing or classifying some information, dividing it into different groups, each group with a distinct set of characteristics or definitions or related concepts. So I hope this information helps you. So I'm looking again. So I think that you have a pretty good strategy here. So focus on identifying the questions, finding that information in the reading passage, and then choosing the answers without reading the whole reading passage over and over and over. As you know, you do not have enough time to do that. Now, one thing you said is it takes you 6 to 8 minutes to actually read a reading passage. So it could be that your reading speed is a little bit too slow. Have you figured out what your reading speed is? For example, can you read it 300 words a minute or 200 words a minute or 250? I recommend personally that you try to work on increasing your reading speed to about 350 words a minute. If you can read 350 words a minute, Junaid, you will not have any trouble reading any TOEFL passage at all. You will always have enough time to find anything that you need in those reading passages. Okay? Anyway, again, thank you for your comments and keep up the good work.